Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Angela. For those who don't know me, my name is Regine Rousseau. I am the founder and CEO of Shall We Wine. We are a strategic marketing company. I also write about wine. I am currently writing for Wine Business Monthly. I've written for Wine Enthusiasts, Afar Magazine. And The Drop. So I'm super excited for the panel today, and I'm going to focus more on them than on myself. So let me start by introducing Desiree Harrison Brown, the founder of Wino Shop. I love that name.
Thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited to meet you because I've been like fangirling and following you on social. What does your t-shirt say before we even get to the business? The
So
future. Okay, love it.
this is one of the first shirts that I released in the Wino shop. It says the future of wine is black.
I love that. So why don't you tell us, because you do a lot. You own the shop. You are an influencer. You're a brand ambassador. So I'll let you introduce yourself. I'll introduce the other panels and then we'll get to the questions.
Yeah, so I am a wine educator. I teach WSET courses. I'm a content creator, so I work with brands and helping them to get their story out and share it with my audience. And then I'm also the founder of the Wino Shop. So the Wino Shop is a business that I had on my heart for a really long time, and the pandemic just allowed the time and the space to really put everything into it. And it at the shop, we sell merchandise like the shirt I'm wearing today. We have another of our best sellers. It's the Future of Wine is Female shirt, but we also have other merchandise and accessories to really promote a positive representation of the Black community and the wine industry and community in general, all revolving around wine.
I love that. And the shop is really beautifully curated. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So next, I am going to introduce you all to Cheramie, or I love to pronounce it Cheramie. Are you there? She's the winemaker and
Hi,
founder of Cheramie Wine. Hey, sis, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? Good to
I
see you
am
again.
good to see you. I know we've been spending a lot of time together.
I love it.
So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company?
Yes, so I'm Cheramie Aho, and I own Cheramie Wine. We are a Texas-grown, Texas-made wine brand. So we grow all of our grapes here in Texas, and we make our wine right here in the state. Texas is an up-and-coming wine region, and so me and my husband, we fell in love with the wine industry here in Texas, and we started our own brand from there. Here in Texas, we probably have over 500 permanent wineries, and 10 or less of those are Black owned. And so we want to change just what people think of when they think of Texas and when they think of Texas wine.
And you were one of my first introductions to Texas wine. And you had this Riesling that blew all of my members away. But tell us, what other varietals do you have?
Yeah, so Riesling was our very first wine, and we here in Texas we grow all different varietals, and so we just want to show people the different things that we're doing. So I had the Riesling, I had a Marsanne Roussanne Viognier blend, I have a Tintacal Trigue National that is still in the barrel. We've got Sangiovese Malbec blend. We've got a Montepulciano rosé, and so we're just working with varietals that are grown all over the world, but do awesome here in Texas.
Awesome. Okay, next we have someone that I have never met, so I'm super excited. Ken, is it Pettus or Pettus?
You got it right. Pettus is right. Yeah.
Pettus, nice to meet you. Where have you been hiding?
Wait. Oh, sorry, my screen dipped off for me. I've been in the trenches. It's been fun. I've been working with this passion project. I've been in the wine industry for about 13 years now. I started with I lived in Europe for a little bit and came back and visited a vineyard out there and came back super intrigued. I'm of Jamaican descent, right? So all I knew was like Red Stripe, Appletons, cognac and everything, but I knew nothing about wine. So after living in Europe and coming back. I dived into a big retail store in Queens, New York. I'm based out of New York City.
So Ken,
And
I'm from Haiti, so we have the Caribbean connection.
okay, yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of Babaku over there, huh?
That's right. That's right. So tell us about Unwine 101.
So Unwine 101, before we can, I've taken a lot of certifications and really dived into regions and terroirs and stuff like that. But I think before we can get into that, Unwine 101 is diving into the basics. And the basics before you can get into learning really about wine is tasting wine. That's usually people's first experiences, right? So what I've formed is a tasting experiential company where I invite. It started off as super organic, literally tricking my friends into drinking wine, but putting them in situations and scenarios where wine is approachable and meeting people where they're at instead of trying to force them in a space to enjoy, consume, learn, educate them, but also giving them experiences with wine where they're comfortable going back into wine stores and wine bars, making their wine choices.
So here's my first question. And since you're up, I'll ask you this first. I want to start with one of my favorite quotes. Okay. So I believe you three are entrepreneurs. So you're going to agree with my favorite quote. And then those of you who are thinking about being entrepreneurs, y'all need to write this down. Okay. Get a piece of paper and a pen. The quote is, entrepreneurship ain't for punks. Okay. Right. It's real. So, okay, let's start with Ken. I want to know what motivated you to start your business. And, one of the things that Dr. Bell said earlier on is that a lot of the entrepreneurs that she talked to, this is a part-time, or it is a part-time work for them. So what's your motivation? And is this what you do full-time, or do you do something else? And I'm going to throw this out to each one of the panelists.
So I'll answer the second part first, whereas I actually worked with Avriel a few years back, so we were very familiar with each other. I actually put in the chat that I missed him. I haven't seen him in a long time. So I work with a big distributor, working with a pretty big portfolio out of New York City. So that's like the 9 to 5, right? But the inspiration from for Unwine 101 came as I'm sure it's an experience that we all can have some relation to. Whereas my friends and my family know I'm in wine and they don't know wine. So I would always get phone calls when people are in wine stores, or if they have a question about what to purchase for XYZ event. And, they don't know the difference between a Pinot Grigio and a Sauvignon Blanc. They don't know the difference between a Cabernet and a Pinot Noir. They don't know, that Prosecco is a sparkling wine, just like Champagne is, just like Cava is, right? Their only perception of sparkling wine is Champagne. So I wanted to put together situations and scenarios, and it literally started out as just bringing cases of wine into a park in 2020 and inviting people to try different wines. And we did it, and it was great. And it was a really nice experience. It was in a beautiful park in Brooklyn, and people asked to do it again. So we did it again. And people asked to do it again. So we did it again. Every time it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I have friends on the West Coast out and
it sounds like you were motivated by like introducing people who look like you to wine. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a little bit of joy in that, but you're at the end of the day, it's expanding people's comfort zones and getting them, introducing those new wine enthusiasts, as some of the other panels were talking about, into the wine world, so that we can build this tent out as big as possible.
I love that. So I'm curious. I keep wanting to say Cheramie because we have our history. But Cheramie, so tell me, owning a brand is a lot, right?
It is.
So tell me, what was the motivation to do this, because that's not how you started your business.
Yeah, so, I've been in the Texas wine industry for about 14 years, or 14 years, since 2014.
Mhm.
And it really just started out as just trying to gather all of this knowledge. My husband had a family member who actually sells wine from around the world who lives in New York. And when we first learned about Texas wine, we were at a family function and we were so excited about Texas. And we went to her and like, have you heard about Texas wine? And she looked at us like we were crazy, and kind of turned her head like this is at like Easter dinner or something. And so I am the type of person that loves a challenge. And so if you tell me I can't do it, there's just something in my heart that just has to go and do it. So don't tell me I can't do it. Please don't. It's great, brings great pain to me sometimes. At any rate, from there, I had to figure out why did we get that reaction from her? Like, because what we saw didn't warrant that, reaction. And so we spent about 3 years on the road visiting all the wineries, meeting with winemakers, growers, and industry leaders in an effort to understand the Texas wine industry. And then I realized I didn't see myself there. And so, and I realized other wine brands here in Texas were not, selling their wine how I thought they should. And so I became a broker, and I got my butt handed to me here in Dallas as a wine broker, which was awesome and great because I learned about how to sell wine and how Texas fits in with the world of wine. And from there, I asked my husband if I could take our life savings and start a wine brand because I really.
And you're still married.
And we still are. To show the world what we're doing here in Texas, but not only do that, but Texas doesn't have, we don't all wear cowboy hats, although I do like a hat sometimes.
So I'm curious, how about you, Desiree? What was the motivation for you?
So I transitioned into wine after working in another career. After being bitten by the wine bug, I knew I just needed to be in the industry. And I started in a more corporate setting. I worked as a sales rep selling wine. It also kicked my butt. It was hard work. And I transitioned from that role to working for Pernod Ricard, like Chuck, who was on the call earlier. But I actually left that role in order to pursue entrepreneurship. I felt a little pigeonholed by working in a corporate setting. I was building my platform on social media, and I wanted the freedom to work with brands and to run the Wino shop without, having to worry about non-competes and things like that. So I was really motivated by the community that I was building. I knew there was something there because I was sharing stories about wine. I was connecting with people all over the country. And I knew that I wanted to continue to foster that community with people in wine.
Okay, so I think that I love the excitement that you were all sharing about that origin story, right? What motivated you? When you work in the wine industry, and I am guilty of this, right? If you look at my Instagram page, you think all I do is get on TV and drink wine, right? And it looks really fun, looks really glamorous, and everyone wants to know, oh my God, how'd you get on TV? And they don't know, like, it is some work to get from getting booked to getting the wine to getting on TV, right? So I want you guys to share the real story of what you do, not to scare people, maybe scare them a little bit, but really so that they get an understanding of what your work involves. It's not just about drinking wine. So I want to start with you, Desiree, because you're managing inventory. You're trying to figure out what are the trends? What do people really want on their t-shirts? What kind of glasses do they want? So tell us a little bit about your work and what it takes to start an online shop.
It is so much work, and I started not knowing how much work it was, and that was probably a good thing. But I built the website myself because I didn't have funding. I just was pursuing this as a passion project. So learning how to build a website, producing t-shirts. I produced the t-shirts on my own, hopefully not forever, but it's a lot of research and dedication. And then bringing in my marketing skills from previous roles in my previous career, bringing that into the wino shop and figuring out how I was going to sell this to people. I knew I was building a community, but how was I going to get people to trust this new business and to shop with me? So it is a lot that goes into it, from the research, the production, the managing inventory, managing money. It is a lot of work, accounting and keeping track of finances and taxes and all of the things that people don't see when they see you running a business.
So Desiree, you said something. You said, how do I get people to buy, right? And so for someone who's listening now and they're thinking about, or they're developing a product or they have a product, is there one piece of advice? Is there one thing that you did that pushed your brand forward?
I would say just believing in your own brand and portraying your passion for the brand is what really worked for me. You have to believe in what you're selling, and once you get that one person to purchase, then you have the motivation to kind of keep going. I always say all I need is one person to buy it and I know I have something good, but you really have to blindly believe in your vision and trust that it's going to work.
Okay, I love that. So let's go to let's go to Ken. Ken, I'm curious about creating events, right? And that's a lot of the work that I do. And I know it's an expensive project. It's time consuming. And when you're selling tickets at $100 a shot or 75, it's not easy to get a lot of people to say yes. And how are you doing that? And what strategies are you currently using to market your business? Let's give the people some strategies. Y'all know about strategies. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, social media is your best friend. Your content, like I will spend the most amount on my content. It doesn't matter, because I can have a great event I can have an event that isn't as great. But what's more important is that the content that I get is great, and that I can reproduce it and put it out and market it out in a way that makes not just the people and the customer experience great. That's the other thing I'm really conscious about, is the customer experience, because I like, it's one of the things I'm a stickler about when I'm out. So like, I want to make sure there's like no long wait for lines, when they're out. But also it's kind of twofold, because my experience is not just for the customers, but it's for the brands that I'm working with, right? So I want to show, because I work with a lot of Black-owned brands, and my goal is to highlight these brands for the people that are coming to the event. So I have to be able to show and market for these brands and show them the experience that they are investing in me in as well. So I mean, social media, content, word of mouth, and great friends.
Do you believe in are you doing paid advertising on social?
Yes, 100% paid advertisement. Okay. It is a business expense that is just factored in one way, shape, or form. There's no running from it. I embrace it at this point.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. So okay, we're opening up Q&A. Man, I had so many questions. Y'all messing with my time here. Okay, Cheramie, let's talk a little bit about selling wine, right? Yeah. You talked about going out there as a broker. So what are some of the strategies that you use to get your brand out there?
I think number one is networking. It's networking with people in all levels of the industry. I couldn't have gotten Cheramie Wine as far as I have without networking. That's, people who look like me, people who don't, executives, all sorts of people. So you have to really be a people person that's willing to put yourself out there, especially with a brand like Cheramie Wine. We are Texas wine, so we are very niche, and so people have a lot of questions about our product and all of that. And so networking is number one. I've put some awesome people in place to help me pick great grapes. So I have all the faith in my grape growers, and I have the people who ship my wine. And so none of that moves unless I can sell the wine. And so networking is key.
Okay. So I'm looking to see if there are any questions. I'll ask one more. Let's say I'm an entrepreneur. I'm thinking about going into the wine business and I just don't know where to go. Based on your current business, where do you think the opportunities are? And are there specific opportunities for entrepreneurs of color that you would say, you know what, if you don't know where to go in the wine business, try this or research this area? Let's start with Desiree.
That's a really good question. I think there is a lot of opportunity to get into the wine industry. I think my biggest recommendation is to really network and also look to other industries for advice. I'm selling merchandise, t-shirts, accessories, and it happens to be in the wine industry. I happen to be building this community around wine, but I think there is so much to be learned just from e-commerce brands in general, knowing marketing techniques in general, not just in the wine industry. So I really think that the biggest thing is network and don't be so pigeonholed to look into wine. Look to other industries and find mentors that may not even be related to the wine industry that can help you just say running a business effectively and efficiently.
I love that. I think that is key because we can't just look at what we're doing. What would you say, Ken? Would you agree with that, or do you have a different perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean into networking as much as possible. I think that's one of the beautiful things about where we're at with technology right now is everybody's accessible, to an extent. If there's somebody that you don't know, it's very easy to reach out to them in some way, aspect, shape, or form, whether it's a comment on a page, whether it's, friending them, whether it's sending them a message, sending them an email, letting them know where you're at in your stage of entry of whatever aspect of wine industry or whatever aspect of that you are looking to get into as a wine professional in some way, shape, or form, and let them know what your ambitions are. And for the most part, of course, you have some emails that may go unresponded or some DMs that may be left unread. But for the most part, people, at least I've found with my personal interactions, even people that hit me up, and I'm very approachable. I don't gatekeep when it comes to this information. We have enough gatekeepers or as many roadblocks right now, that we've had to overcome, that at least that I've seen over the past 15 years. So like my goal has always been to knock those firewalls down, to knock those, those fake brick walls down, so that, again, we can expand the tent as much as possible. So yeah, I absolutely lean into networking and, having the ability to just reach out to people and let them know where you're at, what your ambitions are.
Yeah. So Cheramie, someone mentioned in the last panel that distribution was an area where we're not represented. I worked for a distributor many years ago, and I know how challenging that that sector of our businesses. Do you think that is something that people should look at, or where do you think there's an opportunity?
No, that's a absolute huge opportunity. Right now, that's a roadblock for Cheramie Wine as distribution. We're self-distributing here in the state of Texas, and Texas is a very large state. And although you have companies who say they care about diversity, when it comes to distribution, they don't show it in their business model. And so it would be so helpful to have people on the inside of these distribution companies who are looking for brands like mine or that look like mine or whatnot. I think that's a huge opportunity.
One question that everybody or every panel talked about was the Drink Black movement, right? Which is the topic of our discussion, Drink Black movement and beyond. A few years ago, I wrote an article for Wine Enthusiasts, and I talked about, okay, this is what's happening in my business. Right after the murder of George Floyd, we saw this uptake, and people were calling and asking, are you Black owned, and wanting to work with Black owned businesses. It seems like everyone is saying there's a decline. So tell me, how has it impacted your business then and now? And, how are you leveraging being a Black-owned business to market your businesses? So we'll end on that question.
That's a really good question. I have found that it is not as easy to move forward being a Black owned wine brand today. But if you could get in front of the right people, there are still people who are wanting to do the work. We went into our first large retailer space here in Texas, and we'll be going into another large retailer at the end or in RNDC. RNDC, you guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
OND. So we're really, but it's people who see our brand and who are wanting to continue to do the work. I have also found being out and pouring my own wine and telling my story, people want to still be a part of it. It's just different. It looks different than it did in 2020.
We do have a question from, I think it's Navy Wine Bar and Tasting Room. They're starting a private label wine brand. Do you have any experience with that? Anybody on the panel, and any information that you can share about starting a private label?
That's a short question, but there's a lot that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask more, and I would need more in-depth questions. What are you necessarily looking for? I think it's really important that when you are coming into the wine industry, you don't just from how I look at it, is just go buy shiners and say, here I am, a wine brand. I think it's very important for you to get into the industry, get into the vineyard, getting it to the winemaker, really getting into what you're trying to sell.
So would it be okay to put them in contact with you for a little one-on-one conversation?
Of course.
Perfect. See, look how we're getting things done here. So Desiree, I'd love to hear from you about the impact of the Drink Black movement and how that impacted your business, and have you seen a change in the last couple of years?
Definitely seen a change, but I will say the Drink Black movement, or the racial awakening in the country, was really what got a lot of eyes on my business. So I found that it was just the perfect time to start telling my story and to start the Wino Shop brand. There was a lot of excitement at the beginning, and like other people on the panel previously said, it started to fizzle out a bit. But for me, I just continue to tell my story and to find new audiences to tap into. The wine world is huge. There are so many wine drinkers, and I don't believe there is a limit to the people that we can touch. So it's about not giving up, not seeing that decline as the end, but really the beginning, and looking for new avenues to share and spread the story.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to throw this question at you, Ken, that just came in the chat. How do you make sure that your brand is legally protected?
You definitely have to go through, your hoops with your LLCs, and that's the first thing I did before I did anything. I trademarked my logo. I trademarked. I filed for my LLC, and I went through my personal attorneys just to make sure everything was safe, valid, but also that I'm protected if anybody tries to use my logo or anybody tries to use anything that I have, personal. And ownership of my intellectual property. But I did want to touch on what the previous subject was that you guys were talking about in terms of the Drink Black movement, and I kind of want to put emphasis on it, that I think the machine that was helped propelling the Drink Black movement has kind of slowed down, but I feel that there are way more people of color and Black people that are more socially aware and more conscious and are absolutely looking for those brands and absolutely looking to support Black owned brands, I think. And that's kind of where we kind of have to take, the baton, and it's kind of what we do with, on Wine 101, is try to put those brands in front of people and let them know these are, beautiful, delicious, amazing, Black-owned brands that you can find in Happy Court. We've done some amazing events with Sunshine and in Brooklyn, and and in other spaces to increase, also to not just, of course we want to support Sunshine, but we also want to see these brands on other stores and other shelves and increase the distribution, because with distribution comes the increase of volume, which comes the increase of the growth of the business, and also more wine consumers and wine enthusiasts in the business.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I want to respect everyone's time, and unfortunately, we have to wrap up. I think as entrepreneurs, we love to share our stories, but more importantly, I appreciate the fact that you all shared some strategies that other entrepreneurs can take with them. I'm going to say it. If I'm wrong, y'all can cuss me out later. We are available to you. If you want to reach out to us and set up a time to talk about your businesses, I'm sure myself and all of the panelists would be happy to support you in any way. Am I right? Or y'all going to call me later and say, Regine, why'd you do that?
You are absolutely right.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll turn it back over to Angela.